Yesterday on this program, Dr. Eric Feigelding, the epidemiologist who regularly kind of keeps us up to date on what's going on with COVID and all that sort of thing, pointed out that he thought that that the vaccines were actually a 3-dose vaccine rather than a 2-dose vaccine to have real immunity. And that Israel demonstrated that. They had a 4th wave in Israel. They vaccinated the whole country with a third shot, and had no deaths, 0 deaths, even though they had a lot of cases. There's a lot of mandatory testing going on, so you find it, but no deaths. And now, and he was proposing that for the United States yesterday, or saying that, if we really wanted to get serious, we had to go that way. And now, number 10 Downing Street, this is, the administration in the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson's administration, they are coming out now and saying, well, this is from The Guardian, British-based newspaper. Ministers are set to require, that would be, the health ministry, presumably within the government. Ministers are set to require 3 vaccinations from those eligible for booster jabs in order to qualify as being fully vaccinated in areas where people must prove their status, such as traveling or avoiding mandatory isolation. Downing Street sources said the intention was to end up in a place with 3 jabs rather than 2 as the requirement to obtain a COVID pass showing full vaccination. Their equivalent of the FDA, it's called the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, is recommending boosters for all adults 6 months after their 2nd jab, but now they're talking about basically making that mandatory. It's fascinating. So, number 1, just, to put in your biocomputer. Number 2, this has to do with the Build Back Better bill. The Build Back Better bill, which has not yet passed, would provide you, if you buy an electric vehicle, with a $7,500 tax credit, which reduces the price of an electric vehicle because it's a credit, it's actual money coming from the government. So it effectively reduces the price of an electric vehicle by $7,500. In addition to that, the Build Back Better law, or act, it's not a law yet. In fact, it hasn't even passed the House of Representatives yet, much less the Senate. The Build Back Better Act would also give you a $4,500 credit if you buy a car, an electric car, that was made in the United States with unionized labor. Now, that's fascinating, right? This is called living your values. We are not only going to incentivize people to move away from gasoline, from gas-powered cars that are stinky and produce emissions that cause cancer and asthma. There's an estimated 10,000 cases a year of just cancer in the United States from car emissions. Hundreds of thousands of cases of asthma and other, diseases, not just lung diseases, caused by car emissions. So, we want to move people, not to mention the national security aspect of oil, not to mention the climate change aspect of oil. So we want to move people away from vehicles that are going to, drip petrocarbons and the fumes from them into their garages and next door to their houses. I want to move people out of that and into these incredibly clean electric vehicles that don't stink up your garage or your carport or whatever it may be, that or your state, and that are just lickety split. If you've never driven an electric car, or even a plug-in hybrid, where you can go 30, 40 miles on a charge and then it kicks over into gasoline, you got to do it. I mean, these things are amazing. They're like jackrabbits. There's no transmission. It's just boom, right out of the gate. All that power, 100% of that power from the batteries being converted into kinetic energy. Whereas with a gasoline engine, you've got to shift up, because you don't have that kind of torque available to you. So anyhow, to promote these, our first value, we want to promote saving the planet. So let's build cars. It takes about 17 years in total for all the cars to get flushed out of the system and new cars to replace them. That's peak maximum replacement. Average replacement time is around 7 or 8 years. So, get started now, right? If we want to have a really big impact, a decade. So start giving people an incentive to buy a car. And it's because one of our values is fighting climate change. Another one of our values is that workers should have union representation in the workplace, particularly in large companies where individual workers, compared to the whole company, have not only no power, but generally speaking, not even any ability to communicate to power, to speak to power. So we're going to say, yeah, we're going to give you a $7,500 tax credit if you buy a car that doesn't cause pollution. And then on top of that, we're going to give you another $4,500 if that car that doesn't cause pollution was made by union labor in the United States. Now, does that sound great? Joe Manchin doesn't think so. Neither does the entire Republican Party. Now, I get that the Republican Party would be opposed to this because they hate unions. I mean, Ronald Reagan declared a war on unions in August of 1981 when he fired 11,345 people, Patco strike at the entire union. Fired them all. And broke one of the two unions that supported him in the election, just crushed them as the kickoff for Reagan's labor. And he took us from being 1/3 unionized to now 6% of the private workforce is unionized in the United States as a result of Reagan's 40-year war on labor that Reagan kicked off. So you can understand why all the Republicans would be opposed to a $4,500 tax credit for buying a clean vehicle, an electric vehicle, that was made with union labor in the United States. But why would Joe Manchin oppose it? Well, it turns out that Toyota, and this might be one of those areas where it's kind of hard to criticize him, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But it turns out that Toyota has just announced that it's going to invest $240 million in a West Virginia plant to produce hybrid vehicles. And it's going to be a non-union plant. So, the first obligation of a senator is to the nation, right? I mean, just generally speaking, you're a member of the federal legislature, your first obligation is to the nation. Generally speaking. But the second obligation, and occasionally it'll supersede the first depending on the issue, is to the people in your state. So the question that I have, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, is Joe Manchin opposing this $4,500 provision for union labor because a non-union auto factory is about to be built in West Virginia? Although they're not going to be making electric vehicles, by the way. They're going to be making hybrid vehicles. So this wouldn't even apply to them, although down the road, in all probability, they'll be making electric vehicles. Is he doing this about West Virginia? Or is he doing this because of opposition to unions? The article that talks about this, it's over at Common Dreams. The headline is, "Inexcusable. Manchin leads charge against Biden's pro-union electric vehicle tax credit." But that article notes, joining Manchin in opposition to the tax incentive are Republican lawmakers, including Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Roger Wicker of Mississippi. So Our Revolution, the group that Bernie Sanders started, that is now independent of Bernie, Our Revolution came out with a statement on this. And they said, "Our is running out of time, yet Manchin wants to stand in the way of affordable and sustainable solutions. Shame." So I share with you both sides of the argument. Either he's working to make sure that that factory doesn't go down in flames in West Virginia, or he's trying to, diminish the power of unions in the United States. Or maybe it's both.